Do you want to learn how to tune electronic fuel injection live in person with the guys from RealTuners? We have 2-day courses in dyno shops all across the country. You can register for these at RealTuners.com and click on RealTuners Live Classes. For more information or to make a reservation, go to RealTuners.com or message us on Facebook at RealTuners LLC. Now, about those classes. When are they, you might ask? On March 2nd, a special 1-day advanced course at Dynocom Industries in Fort Worth, Texas. March 30th and 31st, late model Dodge and Mopar factory ECU tuning with Rick Tapp in Dallas, Fort Worth. April 13th and 14th, a Level 1 EFI course at Endless Performance in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. April 27th and 28th, an advanced class at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri. May 18th and 19th, a standalone EFI Level 1 class at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri. June 15th and 16th, a Level 2 advanced course in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at Endless Performance. And of course, we will be trying to schedule more classes and more dates throughout the year, so keep checking back for more info. Sometimes we have a special guest, sometimes we don't. Tonight, you're the special guest. You ask the questions, we give the answers. Anything related to these automotive obsessions of ours and how to make them go faster. And as usual, we have our normal panel of hosts. Bill Fowler of Big Hat Racing. Chad Reynolds of Bangshift.com. James Short of Shore Tuning. John Bewley of Little John's Motorsport Solutions. Mark Dalquist of Throttles Performance. Scott Clark of RealTuners.com. Scott Evans of Helix Tuning. Brad Klemp from Clapped Out. Tom Sewell of Fuel Injector Development. Dan Parker, the movie star. He's blind in one eye and can't see out the other. And possibly a few of our previous guest hosts will pop their heads in and chat as well. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Now let's get this show on the road. Hey, welcome back, everybody. RealTuners Radio, episode 78. You ask questions, we give the answers. It's warming up everywhere. Hopefully, everybody's thawing out. I know it's been great out here in Vegas the past couple days. We had a great class this weekend. If you missed it, I'm sure we'll have another one sometime in the future. We got plenty more coming up all across the country. And yeah, let's say hi to everybody else. Hello, everybody.
What's going on, everybody?
Hey,
I'm using my new voice modulator here. How's it sound?
2 steps away from Darth Vader, Bill.
Hey, I looked into trying to hire what's-his-face's kid, or James Earl Jones Jr. or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
Do the voice
We
intro.
actually did that.
I know. Didn't know it's a real thing. He'll do it, but he's expensive if you're just trying to do little short things. But if you're doing a big old book, he's not too bad. But anyway, man, so just got back last night to wonderful snowy Omaha. Had to shovel my car out of parking. That sucked. Frontier was right on time, which means they were like 3 hours late getting in here and taking off and everything. Sat on the tarmac in Vegas forever. But that's the Frontier Airlines thing. Everybody who has followed me on Facebook knows what I feel about them. But incoming, So anyway, big thanks to Frank Guerrero and Tim for helping us out.
Those
the guys at Revolution Streetcars. Oh man, talk about an awesome facility for having a class. Another kick-ass place.
I told you he had a nice shop.
Yeah, you were right, Bewley. And he's the right people too. There's sometimes if you pick the wrong shop locally, then none of the locals will show up or whatever because they don't like somebody. Everybody likes Frank. So
Frank's good people.
We had a good time.
It was awesome. Anybody in the Vegas and Greater Vegas area, if you need competent work done, you got to go see those guys at Revolution Streetcars.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
What a perfect echo chamber that huge interior was.
I got some bitchin' audio recordings. Yeah, I got some bitchin' audio recordings. I just don't have them ready for to put on the intro yet. I got to get them to Scott. I got to clean them up a little bit. But
just send them to me as they are. I can make them work.
But for those unaware, I mean, most of you guys that listen that were out there were there. But for those unaware, we did a class in Las Vegas this last weekend, an EFI Essentials, which is I hesitate to call it the basic class because we'll get pretty advanced if you've got advanced questions that we know how to answer. I mean, there's always somebody ask questions that it's like, I don't know, we'll have to go find out. But most of them we can answer. And so we Tim told me, he's like, wow, that was pretty advanced for a basics class. I'm like, well, I tried to change the name, call it Essentials, but now it sounds like Essential Oils or something stupid. So I don't know, but you should start at the basic class, even if you think you're some kind of expert, because I mean, we go so far as to get into how to set up traction control on 2 different systems, and all that stuff. We tuned Bill Fowler's 1,000+ horsepower, naturally aspirated, big block Ford.
He said it made 1017 on the engine dyno.
Was it 598?
Yeah, 598.
And is that a stock deck height? A460?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, remember a big block Ford is a 10.310 deck. So it's kind of like starting with a tall deck big block Chevy to begin with.
Gotcha.
So did you find him any more horsepower so it makes as much power as a big block Chevrolet now?
Not quite.
You know what? The bottom line, John, is we're going to go to Drag Week and Rocky Mountain Race Week and shit like that, and we'll see who goes up with the valve covers.
Evans, tell me you've got a video queued up. Does Evans have a video queued up?
I don't have any video queued up. They're all over my Facebook, and I know
we've been busy. Yeah, go check my Facebook
I've been so busy, I haven't had time to do jack since we got done. So
same here. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't busy. We spent a day cruising around. We went to that Red Rocks resort and spa thing on Monday and hung out there and didn't leave till Tuesday afternoon. But we had I went back to Frank's on Monday. I met the guy with Cadillac, James. We didn't have to do anything to it. He just needs a different set of plugs. He was running 2 hot plugs, 6s or 2 hot plugs for your turbo to LS streetcar on crappy pump gas.
Yes. Go to a 7.
Because it was pinging just a little bit when he'd start getting into boost until he'd lay into it and we'd make it real fat. But and then
I want to hear a couple of things more about Bill's car if we could.
I just want to say that Bill's exhaust on its own, all the way out the back, is pretty damn loud, right? Like it's got to wear earplugs, got to wear earmuffs loud. And then we took the mufflers off, and you could hear it like 3 states away, like loud.
And it's almost 600 cubic inches wanging up to 8,000 RPM, right? I mean, it was funny because I told him, he's like, well, where's the limiter? I'm used to turbo cars. We don't want to slam into the limiter under big boost at the end of a pole or whatever if we can avoid it. But Bill's like, oh, no, man, it's built to hot lap. Let's do it. And so we literally, the thing cools off for 2 minutes and it's ready to make another pole. And I mean, it was just funny because he just plowed that thing into the limiter at $8,000. I'm like, God damn. That's a big
he's got kind of a soft limiter, so it's not as hard as just drilling a limiter.
It wasn't horrible. Yeah, he's got
the cool thing is that it's NA. And so everyone with the turbo stuff, they aren't used to working for 5 horsepower here and 10 horsepower there. They aren't used to that. So
if you get a chance, go into one of our Facebooks and go listen to Fowler's car. If the audio may suck from Facebook, but we're clearly going to use it for either the intro or the outro here pretty soon when we get it worked in. But I used my really good expensive handheld recorder, the Zoom H6.
Yeah, I'm sure you got some good stuff right.
And I did some recordings from outside, just outside the garage door. Oh my God, it sounded so badass. So anyway, the car's still slow, but it sounds awesome. Just kidding.
Thank you.
And teasing
I gotta see if I can get this to play.
I think the good thing about this is I'm just losing my shit over getting 17 numbers because we tightened up the PIDs and got a little more aggressive on the PID, and we tightened up the Ego Correct. Yeah. We already knew that this engine really, really likes 12.5 to 1 AFRs.
Yeah, right.
And so we tightened it up around that, and we made 20
and it
horsepower.
Smokes like a diesel truck on that California pump gas, but it's what it wants. Bewley, you would have loved it, man. It looks like the Frank's Red Hot tune on motor, no less.
I think people were shocked by, we did a couple pulls back to back on purpose because you got to get fluids warmed up and everything kind of situated. And people were shocked at how much difference it made between kind of I think the vehicle's warm now first pull and, 3 pulls later it's settled in.
I should back up and explain that. I made him, this is the thing we got to do. Mo Lones taught me this from LSX Killer when we worked with him some last year. And we used his
I've done this for years.
Well, I'd known it a little bit. They told me this in dyno class. I feel stupid, but a lot of times you just dive in to start making changes. Well, anyway, you can't know what you're doing. You have to make pulls and get the stupid combo to repeat time after time. If you make a pull on a car, cool it off for 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, and make another pull, and every time it's 20 horsepower different, then there's a problem. Well, what you'll notice right off the bat is your first 3 to 6 or 7 pulls on a chassis dyno, the numbers keep going up, but even though you're not making changes, and it's because everything's warming up and your drivetrain and the dyno's getting warmed up. Right. So you got to make pulls, and I know it beats on stuff. I hate that, but you make pulls until it starts repeating. And we did that on Bill's, and then we started getting a good handle on changes, took out 2 degrees of timing. Bill, do you want to tell that story? Because it was mufflers on. I'll
tell that story because that was really fascinating. So when we had the version of this engine on the engine dyno several years ago, I think that was
shout out to the Urbancic brothers. That's been like 6 years ago or 5 years ago.
Or 2012 or whatever it was.
So
this thing's ancient. There have been a little tweaks between then and now, camshaft, other things. Any event, we found out that with this cylinder head and 12 to 1 compression, this is a very, very shallow dish JE piston on a 4.6 bore, 4.5 stroke 598 deal. Anyway, we found that it really likes 12.5 to 1 AFR. A couple of tenths of a point either side of that, and it would fall off. So we kind of knew that was where that was, and we tested mean best timing, and we
did have 802s on this engine. We did have 802s on this combo, but when we did this, and we observed that it's off at low RPMs at cruise and light loads, but once you get wide open and once it clears its throat. This was one of the other two engines I've ever worked on that had really closely balanced AFRs per cylinder. The other one being Dahlquist, who's also on the phone with us here.
But and I think that some people love them, some people hate them. But I'm going to give a tip of the hat to the Wilson Manifolds guys because we sent them the heads, which had been done, and the manifold, which hadn't. And they did their CNC magic on the manifold. So I got to give them some credit. And this is a TFS cast manifold with their porting and 2 AccuFab 2200 CFM 4-barrel throttle bodies, just to kind of fill in the blanks. The bottom line is when we were on the engine dyno, it equally liked 28 degrees total timing or 26 degrees during the watt part of the pull. It didn't make any difference. So we've left it at 26.
Which I'm not going to say that I liked that or was comfortable with that. I'm just going to throw that out there. But I guess I'm used to turbo cars. It's less likely to hurt something hard on naturally aspirated stuff.
Well, so that's my point. So I've left it at 26 degrees total because of the 2 numbers that made the most go with the lower one, right? So we've had it at 26 degrees and it's been that way for a long time. So in order to run True Street in California, Irwindale and Fontana and things like this, they're now Tell you, if I'm at a track somewhere and I have to run that exhaust system, and I'm a little worried about because I had to go by Quickie Mart for gas for some reason. Because again, this is a car that drives, pull up to the pump, put it in, go race. That's what this car was built for. So we do that 13 numbers down at 22. So at that point, it's time to test. Does it make a difference? Because we all had this question in the back of our heads at some point. If I drop the exhaust, will it go faster? Now, I can tell you that this exhaust system weighs 44 pounds, so I'm going to get 44 pounds of fat off the car. People say, Bill, stop eating burgers. You could take more than that. Okay, fine. In any event, we take the exhaust off, and I have two little 45-degree, 4.5-inch stainless dumps, which cost me an absurd amount of money to make. Anyway, so it just doesn't, haze the bottom of the car with that fat gray stuff that Scott was talking about. And we run it through, and it picks up like 15 horsepower. And I'm like, really? 15? So then we go ahead and we put 25 degrees back in it, closer to what it did on the dyno at Verbansics. And lo and behold, we pick up a net of 30 over the exhaust system. And what's unusual about this is with the uncorked headers, it made nice 30 more numbers, but it wanted 3 degrees difference in timing off of that 22.
Yeah, we ended up putting 3 more, and it kept gaining until it finally seemed like it was going to nose over. I think the last, So it was interesting that it got less efficient. Apparently, Beely, what are your thoughts on that? It wanted more timing without the exhaust on the car. So in theory, the less restriction or a difference in scavenging or whatever.
Man, I don't even know.
Not an LS. Hell if I know.
Well, naturally aspirated big block Ford. I mean, could you get any more out of my element with a question?
Right, I know. It's all right. Well, mine too. I don't know a lot of people that build big block Fords for,
Let's face it, a big block Ford is kind of like an equal, when you start going to the more sophisticated, big block Chevy heads, where the spacing is equal. You get away from the good side, the short runner, long runner, and all that. So it's an equal runner. It's 2 4-barrel throttle bodies. So at that point, it's a canted valve head. It has a chamber that looks like an LS for those of you who LS rules the world. I give that to you. And the bottom line is it's equal port spacing. This has a big block Chevy exhaust port flange because a lot of the sophisticated big block Ford heads have big block Chevy flanges because they use them in boats. And all the boat headers are much cheaper if you go big block Chevy than big block Ford.
And let's just face it, the big block Ford exhaust port sucks.
Yes, in spades. So this is not anything related to the typical big. This is a much higher intake port, much higher exhaust port. A460 head is an early Ford Pro Stock head derivative, but it's A. They're now on E and F and G and God knows what else.
Bill, I wasn't looking at the dyno data, but was that just a peak number? Was it better? Did you lose torque and it did?
No, we made torque everywhere. As a matter of fact,
with the exhaust off, it was happier across the whole board.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It could be related to the chamber of that head with this
44 pounds and 33 horsepower, I think.
Yeah.
The thing about the big block Ford is it doesn't have a really, it doesn't have a real steep valve angle or cant, and it's got a really flat chamber, really good chamber. I don't know, with it being a semi-low compression motor, that could be the reason why it wanted more timing. It's kind of
you just had to remove the banana in the tailpipe.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing I'll mention to people is like everything, this thing is crutched around my desire to be able to do multiple things. So the piston, the rings are down a little ways on the piston, and they're gapped for nitrous because I have sprayed this a little bit and want to spray it more. So this has nitrous ring gaps on it.
You put a 200 shot on that motor, and I bet it'd pick up 325.
Just
I bet it would make. I bet it'd make 1,000 to the tire on a 200 hit.
I think you're right. I mean, this was kind of where we were headed with this deal, but we didn't get there. I had the shit sitting on the car, but we needed to move on. So next time at the track, we'll find out. That was also the time I broke the glide, but that turned out to be another issue. The other thing about this that's compromised is the header is a 2 1/4, 2 3/8, 2 1/2. So it's a 3-step primary into the 4.5 inch collector. That was done with a
super huge. Why so big?
Yeah, that's a hell of a lot of header for a pump gas 598.
Yes, it is, but it's a hell of a lot of header when you think you might put 500 or 600 worth of spray through it. So,
which we've always threatened to do for like a decade, but never actually have yet.
I know.
They just put a couple of crossbar plates on them and jet each one for 200 and let it eat.
Oh, it's already got 2 stages of progressive nitrous.
Yeah, he's had the really nice solenoids. We wired up the big boy.
It's got the trash cans
and everything. It's literally ready to go. We PWM tested it and everything. We just nice. Didn't you spray it once at track or try like a test 150 shot or something?
Yeah, and that's when the transmission got hurt.
Right, got it. We already hurt parts already. Yeah,
dude. I bet that thing would I bet that thing would eat a 200 shot for
all day long. Yeah.
Don't even drop the timing. Spray the thing a 200 shot. Just see what it does.
So it ended up like a hair under 770 at the wheels with the exhaust off and the timing where it wanted to be, where I thought it was safe. It was still gaining a little bit with another degree. It could have taken more, but
that thing makes 1,050, 1,100 wheel on a 200 shot.
Yeah. For sure. It made 1017 on the engine dyno, and that was before some cam changes that we think brought the peak up.
Yeah, so you tell me what the driveline loss is, but
on Frank's dyno, it was about 30% different than what it was in the engine dyno, but on other Mustang chassis dynos, which my experience is going from Superflow or DTS engine dynos, put it in a drag, a street strip car, like a drag week type car, like Bill's, the typical somewhat higher stall torque converter, which is going to kill a lot of power numbers to the wheels. I always end up seeing 34 to 37%. And arguably, I'm not testing all the cars in the world, but that's 6 or 7 or 8. That's more than that. It's probably 7 to 10 cars, like Brian Rock and Bill Fowler's and all these other guys I worked on. I mean, I always saw 34 to 37% loss, and I think we saw whatever the difference is between 775 and
the math on Bill's is 23.8
on DynoJet numbers, right?
1017 to 775 is 23.8.
Right. No. But this is on a different dyno. That's what I'm talking about. It's on a DynoJet. So
I understand.
My point being that they probably would have seen a 6% difference between, it would have been more like a 12 or 13% difference.
Same.
I don't think Frank's dyno was turned up that much, though. That seems right. But
his dyno's not all that.
No, it's not that friendly. I can tell you it's not, because the other cars we put on it, they were. They wrote exactly what we thought they would.
I think it's reasonable to describe Frank's dyno as fair. Not generous.
I think it's
so
true.
Bill, why did we lose 37 or 34% on the Spectre dyno on the MD17, the 1750 or whatever it was?
Somebody might have had to.
We're talking on the Spectre dyno. We're talking a very different engine at that point in time. That was a fun, street motor.
Right. Okay.
But
I still remember like how much we lost. Remember how Brian Rock was able to predict what you were going to lose. A lot of it's because he had his engine on engine dyno and then also brought to the same chassis dyno. I remember that. Yes. Differences, chassis differences, gearing. I'm going to say all of that affects it on the chassis dyno. No, I'm just wondering if maybe Bill's AOD setup in his converter is a little bit tighter this time around.
It's actually looser this time.
It's looser than it was.
We loosened the converter, but again, there's this.
Man, you could just never tie those things together. Then it's interesting.
So to John, John's point is 23 point something is the difference if you assume the 1017 that we got a Brabantix in 2012.
Right.
And again, there's been a few little minor changes. If you take your 30% number, divide the 770, that's 1100.
And maybe you got there with Cam, you think?
Yeah, again, it's a little more Cam share.
So he's been making changes, so we really don't have good baselines to figure out. But I mean, it's impressive for all motor, and it runs on pump gas, and it doesn't run hot. You can drive it all the way down the highway. It's literally a legit hop in and drive. I'm not going to say it's the most comfortable drive in the world because it's got the containment cage, everything set up to go fast. Eventually, it's going to go fast.
Dude, it has that seat because I don't want to die if something happens.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So tell me about the twin turbo Cadillac.
Let's talk about the Caddy.
Oh, God. Hold on 1 second. Hey, Evan, stop scrolling the video. They're saying that it's overriding our talking.
Yeah, your audio's blowing them out.
Gotcha. I'm working on all of it.
Sorry, Evan's having a rough night. And
it's all right.
It's I don't
I'm
mind
trying to load up files and they don't load up the right way when you want them to play.
Yeah, it's hard and stressful to do the audio, the actual run the background stuff. Make sure you guys can hear everybody and they can hear you. Oh God,
it's different when I have stuff ahead of time and can actually check it. But when you haven't checked it, it's just hard to make it all load and go.
Well, that's his friendly way of saying, Clark, nobody's sending him prepared materials.
I'm thinking those sound files from the dyno are, everything is maxed.
I got to take it over next week because Evans is getting ready for little procedures. That's going to be interesting.
Although, Randall Burns, you're my hero. We couldn't hear you over the sound of awesome. Thank you, Randall.
Anastasia, I'm perfectly sober. Thank you very much.
Anastasia's sitting around waiting for them. When are they going to talk about our car? Well, girl, you should be on here. You could be talking to us. Anyway, class at Frank's was outstanding. What did we end up? I don't know. There was like 18 or 19 people in there, I think, something like that. I know we had to make room, set up more tables, but that was nice. It was good to see all you guys that came out. Liked meeting all that crowd. So was it James Kabke? Is that his name? That had the Cadillac with the twin turbo Escalade motor in it?
Yes.
Yeah, that thing was off the chain. I was impressed with how much that thing made. We ran it on pump gas and literally single digit boost. I don't know. I saw him. He wasn't talking about what it made, but more than I would have expected. But
well, they were what, 98s or something? And again, on the most
they weren't that big.
Turbos.
No, this like twin 60s or 70s or something.
Lord,
what were they? They were way big for the application.
Kepke, how big were those? Were they 67s or 70s?
They look like 366s.
So he said they were a copy of a 366, basically.
Probably a VS Racing 6673, which is just the Xerox of a Borg 366.
Right. They spooled. Actually, he said they spooled slow on the earlier tune, but apparently we got that figured out because I didn't thought they spooled slow. It seemed like a decently drivable combo, but it just hates that shitty pump gas, and he's running the projected tip plugs, the TR6s or whatever, which I personally do not like with pump gas. I told him to change those out to a set of BR7 EFs, Bewley style, and I bet you that he will not get it. It won't ping.
That's scary.
Yeah.
TR6s.
I thought so too. I thought TR6s seemed really hot to me, but
yeah, it should have been a BR7.
Yeah.
By the way, on mine, I still have the nitrous plugs in it. So,
we should have seen how much that was worth.
That could have been 15 horsepower.
I know. I bet there's power in that. But his car starts and drives nice. It doesn't mind the plugs that are pulled back. It's I always test that out by observing how it starts and idles. And if
it's happier with the 3924s, AR 3924.
I'm sure it is, but I mean, it's definitely not hard to drive around or to operate. Even on the nitrous plugs, I thought it was starting up really nice. Lights right off, but hopefully,
must be the
tuner. Everybody hear us okay now? Are we screwing up?
I think it was just the audio from the dyno pulse.
Oh wow, it's got GT45s on it.
Yeah, it was just the audio from the dyno pulse that was screwy.
Let's take some questions, man. You got some questions backed up there.
I was just gonna say, do we want to do some questions from people because we've been backing up here?
Mark's getting his blood pressure up. We got to get some questions taken care of. He's all about taking care of you customers.
I got to scroll up. They've been going on pretty good. Let's see here.
Anastasia, we won't know until we have you on about your voice, and we can make it sound like anybody.
I got to get a recording of Salty here soon too, at a clandestine dyno coming near you. She's getting ready to wire that thing finally. I don't know if you guys went to the World of Wheels in Kansas City this weekend, anyone did or not, and saw the debut of the Clan Hushinsky hot rod, their new one they're coming out with. About every 3 or 4 years they come out with something cool.
I sold Anastasia her first ECU.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you guys want to know something? You want to know what a good wife she is? So she called up to Fargo and secretly ordered an ECU for Jake for his birthday as a present. That's what kind of wife she is.
Right. I remember that. That was a couple years ago for the fire chicken.
You were up here.
Mark sold them all the equipment for the fire chicken, all the stuff. There was, God, what did we had? EGTs, microsquirt for IO box.
Yeah, all the things.
Yeah, it was good. Anyway, they have now got their stuff. I think Blake Hughes got them this time. Yay, 417, but he's got them on Holly this year for this car. And it's, if you haven't seen the Salty Cobalt, go just find it on Facebook. It's pretty cool build. Pretty as usual. What we've come to expect from Clan Hushinsky. Nothing but the finest in fabrication, and they have access to excellent resources over there.
All I can say is Tim's a badass.
Oh yeah, Tim is amazing. Have you ever hung out with Tim?
I have not. He's
they're like family to me, right? Because they're 2 hours south of here, and I literally always, if I take a road trip and go south, I always spend a night or stay at their place at Jake and Anna's or their dad's, Tim. And I met him from working with Larry Larson. He's one of Larry's go-to buddies. When things get backed up on the chassis department, Larry gets help from Tim or whatever. Tim chips in. He was helping on the truck back in 14 or 15, whatever year that was. But anyway, if you get a chance to see the fabrication work on their new car, their new it's big tire, small tire. It's going to be a dual purpose deal, and it's a all white Chevy Cobalt that looks way cooler than you would think a Cobalt would ever have the potential to look like.
It's the coolest Cobalt on the planet.
It's badass. I know.
It's one on the planet.
Yeah. And Animal's going to tune it. She's doing it all too. And it's funny. I got to give a shout out to Anastasia Hushinsky. She's Jake's wife, right? And she's been on here before. If you listen to old episodes, we've had her on a few times, but she's a really good tuner. And it's funny. She's a young girl. And she's cute or whatever, but she doesn't get credit for the work that she does on these cars. It's kind of sad. I mean, she's really one of the more impressive students that we've had as far as like understanding how to configure. She knows how to configure a wheel speed sensor, or she can do really good job tuning idle on something with a big cam. Like she on her own. And it's just kind of funny. She's going to tune this whole damn car. I'm going to go down and help them do a little bit of wiring and answer questions or a little coaching or whatever, because if you've been to my class, which they've paid for a number of times, I'd help you out, so I'm going to go down and hang out and help them out a little bit, but she is bound and determined. She's going to build that tune and get that thing running on her own from scratch. It's going to be hilarious. I bet it starts on the first try. I'd put $50 on it. We'll maybe have to go Facebook Live the first time they fire up Salty. But
I bet you a $5 bill at some point in time, get the hell out of my way, gets uttered by her to you.
Oh, no, for sure, right? She's got stories already. She's already mad at me. I did something. I was in a grumpy mood or something, and she had to repeat something. I don't know. I made her mad at me one time, so I already got to get the hell out of my way. It's pretty much presumed that she's in charge of everything. I'm just going to be doing some crimping and some stripping wires and, helping hook stuff up just because it's all.
They're going to actually let you hold a tool and do work?
Well, they will, believe it or not. Dog was just like, what? Mark can do work?
Hey, so going on your Vegas class,
I got a great first question to go with on this too, relating to the Vegas class.
Is it from McJames 427?
It's from another guy.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So Fernando Orozco, I don't know if I pronounced his last name right, but he was in our class, and he had a question that I feel is a pertinent question to everything we did. He says, during the class, you guys talked about an oscilloscope. Do you recommend a certain model? And we talk about oscilloscopes a lot.
Yeah. I got one now that I'm in love with. The Pico scope, Pico, Picoscope 2204A. It's it requires a Windows laptop, but it's powered by your Windows laptop. Comes with a cheap probe kit that's easily replaceable, or you can upgrade them if you're a Snap-on fan, that kind of stuff.
You're going to spend $90 for a probe. You can get at Radio Shack for $12.
Right. No. You get where I'm coming from, though. It's got nice probes on it. It's laptop. You can put it in you can run it with a Windows tablet. If you can still find a tablet that'll run a full version of Windows 10. That's what Jake and Anastasia had in their last car as a dash panel. Was an actual full-on Windows
tablet. Full probe.
Yeah. Bunch of smart-ass bastards. So, also on your class in Vegas, McJames 427, he wanted to know, how do you guys approach two-wheel traction control with Holley advanced tables? And I know that you talked about that in class.
What is it? Speed over launch time? Isn't that a table you build an advanced table that's speed over launch time? If not, I would probably spend the $500 for their.
You can also do
traction control on version 5 or whatever, but just because it has such a pretty interface for the single wheel speed sensor type stuff, right? The single sensor.
Yep.
So
he said spend the money.
He said two wheels, so I was assuming two wheels.
Oh, two sensor, do differential.
Yeah,
front to rear.
You just have.
Oh no, I go over that. I go over that in detail. I spend like an hour and a half on that, and sometimes. We went over it in this last class. It was cool because every one of these guys in this last class had experience already. So we just went ahead and dove in. We actually set up traction control on a Megasport car and then on a Holley car, and then had Scott do the most awesome presentation ever on even more advanced stuff. He showed how to do the fuel pressure compensation set up on Holley with advanced tables, and then also showed us how to do. What else did you show us with advanced tables? The
Flex Fuel.
Yep.
Flex Fuel. That's right. Your version of Flex Fuel, which is a little bit different than the Holley default stuff.
Yeah, the Holley default numbers are not the right numbers to put in to get your fueling correct. I'll just say that. What they suggest is not right.
Incoming.
Don't care.
Hey, James Kopke says he'd like to post his dyno sheet from the caddy, which I think everybody would love to see because that caddy was so bitchin'.
Dude, it was only born on like 8 pounds.
I have the picture. It's in the rotation.
Made like 600 wheel.
The dyno sheet? Because it says it won't let him post it. So if you can do it, Scott, that'd be awesome.
Oh, I have it in the rotation of the video. It's in the video files right now. It's already in there. It's in there. I don't know where it's popping up at, but it's definitely
when
in
it's
there.
going to circulate. Have you fixed the audio with the videos playing?
I just gave up on the video stuff.
Gotcha.
Nick Mayers says, "Good evening, guys. I have a quick question. I'm a turbo Buick guy. That is building a street strip car shooting for the nines. He has a fast XFI now and he wants to go with a Holley, and he's not sure if he should go with the HP or the Dominator. He'll be keeping the air conditioning, but he would also like to have a trans brake and some other IOs. If you
Holley Dominator, brother.
Yeah, if you're going to do any expanding at all, just go with the Dominator.
I'd be the Dominator guy on that one. And I know that a lot of Buick guys don't do the Dominator, but the Buick ignition is very simple to do, and the Dominator works with it. So the Turbo Buick guys.
I've done a couple of them.
Yeah, I've done one on Holley and a number on the MS3. They have a plug and play.
They run so much better when you can do that and add cam sync into it and get sequential firing and coils on instead of the.
Like you can run the LS coil packs instead and ditch the C3 ignition.
You can use the stock coils, but it's real tricky to wire them up, and it's a pain in the butt, and you got to keep a bunch of extra crap that you don't really want to keep. And
I don't like the wiring you have to do to make them fire.
Yeah, it's really ugly to do it, and it ends up more headache than just buying a set of LS coils and keeping 2 as spares.
Yeah, buy a set of 8 junkyard LS coils for $100 or $75 and have 2 spares that you'll never need.
Hey, Mark, you're a Holley dealer. So what is the delta from an HP to a Dominator for a guy who's trying to do something like this?
It's about double.
Price
by the time you get all the parts.
No, it's not, because I can't remember. I got a quote retail pricing online, and I can't remember the difference, but I'm going to say it's like $700, but I might be wrong. I don't know. They use the same harnesses. They use the same accessories. They use the same everything. It's just the Dominator has more available inputs and outputs.
Yeah, but you can get an HP, like for an LS, you can get an HP kit for $2,000 with an NTK sensor.
Right.
And then the Dominator ECU itself is that expensive.
Yeah,
then
you're going to end up closer to $3
by
the time you're done on a Dominator.
Yeah, but
usually.
somebody said double, and that's not double.
It's 50%. It's 50 to 60% more money to do a Dominator than it is.
Yeah, Dominator for win. I agree.
No, it's not double.
I've had the experience that I've had the experience that you can buy them online. You know, the price has probably gone up and changed since I bought, but you know, they were at one point they were $1,600, $1,700, and you were into it for $3,000, $3,200 by the time you got two sensors instead of one for your O2s, and you got the injector harness, and if you do drive by wire, that's an extra harness, right? So by the time you get the extra add-ons to go with it, transmission harnesses, you're going to be close to double if you do all of those things. If you just do it as a bare box, you can do it for less.
With an HP.
Correct.
You can't do all of those things with an HP.
Darth Laws says $900.
Yeah, 900 to 1,000 is. Yeah. You know, by the time you do two O2s, that's the big difference. Is just, you know, but a good NTK HP, the 502N. For an LS1 LS2 is 22,000 and change, and that's what the Dominator ECU alone is as well.
Cough, Haltech.
Could be. I think the thing to mention on this, no matter what. Yeah. I think the thing to mention, no matter what, is for you guys listen to this. You know, you're going to go that you're looking. Okay, now I got $900. Let's say that's the delta from the HP to the Dominator. The real important thing for you is who you buy it from and their ability to intelligently and efficiently and concisely support it and help you get you up and running. So it's inappropriate, and I'm going to say this because I'm not currently a Holley dealer, so I can say these things out loud, to call up somebody and get all the information and think you can save $100 from buying it somewhere else, and then you're not going to call back the guy you didn't buy it from and ask him to help you or her to help you. So that little bit of difference of money to get it from somebody like the guys you hear on here that know what the hell they're talking about, it can actually get you up to a clean start and do all those things. That's worth every penny. So just bear that in mind.
Always worth paying a few extra dollars for help.
You're supposed to go on Turbo Bullet and say, who's got the cheapest hookup on the such and such?
Thank you, Mark. Jesus Christ.
Hey, man, we didn't talk about Nick Stewart's car, his Mopar. What was it?
We got to talk about the 67 Coronet. Man, that's an awesome car.
Yeah, that was a cool build. We got two cars that were completely had not run. Oh wait, no. Frank had technically gotten that one started beforehand. The Datsun or the whatever it was that we did. The little guy with the LS swap with the twin. Or no, that had a single job on it now, didn't it?
Had a single Borg on it.
Yeah. Whatever. But it's working on Nick's car was badass because he'd been working on it for a long time, he said, and it was still in bare metal, but it was ready to fire. We didn't get to dyno it, but we got to start it and running and idling and warming up good and behaving nice. And you could drive it in and out of second gear. We didn't have a transmission controller, wasn't working right.
We got to see his face light up like a 4-year-old for sure. It was.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
When somebody's been working on a car a long time and you finally start it for the first time, it's crazy. It's an adrenaline rush. And it's also, it's special. It's special for him because he's building a really unique combo. I mean, that's the first time I've seen a wedge, 440 based Mopar motor with cam sync and coil packs on it. Right. I don't think I've ever seen it. I've seen people do a Gen 1 Hemi and Gen 3 Hemis. I guess I've seen some Ray Barton Gen 2 stuff done that way too, but never seen a wedge motor done up with the missing tooth trigger wheel and the cam sync. He made his own cam sync out of the distributor and made this really cool cap for it. He's a metal fabricator. So it had some pretty cool stuff on the car, and it was neat to see anyway. It was
that car was just 5 tons of bitching from one end to the other. All the finish work, the fabrication, the little custom touches everywhere around that car, and it's still in bare metal. I just drooled over.
I can't wait to see that when it's done. He showed me the paint job that it had before that he had done, and he's a do-it-yourselfer all the way and did a nice job. But I thought that car was super cool. No, it don't start itself.
That said, everybody look at Big Hat Racing because we're going to have a 1954 Dodge Coronet here in about 2 weeks. And Well, it's as big as it is ugly, but it is a museum piece with 37,000 original miles, single owner.
Push button transmission.
3-speed on the tree. Sorry.
Even better.
54, Mark. 5.4.
Well, that's right. Dodge didn't have automatics in 54. They really didn't, I don't think.
I don't even know. But what it's going to end up with is some kind of a third-gen Hemi. Very quiet, very smooth, very awesome.
Nice. Well, what else we got going on? Seems to be going a little normal time tonight.
Camp 78 wanted to talk about using a scope for ignition misfires. And that's a little, when you're on the secondary side, that's a little bit different than like using a scope for watching a crank trigger signal or an injector signal, something like that. You need a kV converter so that because you're talking kilovolts instead of, volts. What you do is you look at the collapse of the field. So you'll see where the coil will charge and it'll discharge and it'll give you a nice peak. And when you have a misfire, it won't do that. It'll be jagged. But it's a different type of scope.
Yeah, it needs a much higher voltage capacity.
Has anyone used a V-Box or similar GPS unit as an input for non-driven wheel speed on an all-wheel drive deal?
Non-driven speed is fine, but the problem is it's about 2 seconds of lag. So no matter what you do, you can't use it for traction control. It's always way behind. So as you're going down the road, the wheel's going to spin, and it's not going to be matched up properly, even remotely close to what it should be. They're always way behind. GPS just isn't fast enough for the things at the level we buy them at. If you buy something that's NASCAR grade GPS units that they're using that are tracking 1/10 of a second, that are like $8,000 for a GPS unit, then yeah, it's not a problem. But
no, they're actually not that fast, man. They're not good for chassis speed with traction control. Yeah. I've used some high dollar GPSs and they weren't really that great. They were always a little behind.
Yeah, they're still behind. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I prefer the accelerometer based stuff. I've played with one. I don't believe it's prototype. I believe it's out there in a firmware of a certain ECU, drag racing ECU, but lets you derive chassis speed real time from accelerometer, from the 5-axis sensor deal. The what is it? 3-axis of accelerometer and a
plus yaw and pitch.
Yeah.
I think.
So Matt Sanford's got one that's either over my head or under my head, but he says, does the Holley Dominator have a setting for blow-through calculations for the wide bands? I know he's not talking about a blow-through carburetor, so what are we talking about here?
I have no clue.
Because if you have a Holley Dominator, why would you have a blow-through carburetor on it? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't know what he's asking there.
I'm not sure what he's asking.
Andy Netherland, I'm running a dual fuel setup, pump and C16 on LSX with a Holley Dominator with 2 different sets of injectors and pumps. Would I be good with using the existing injector drivers and running one set sequential and the other in batch, or getting the add-on injector driver and doing both in sequential?
Am I supposed to answer that one?
Well, yeah, you're the tuner guy.
Sorry, man.
I was distracted.
I wasn't even listening. Mark,
say the question again.
Okay. I'm running a dual fuel setup, pump and C16, on an LSX with a Holley Dominator with 2 different sets of injectors and pumps. Would I be good with using the existing injector drivers and running one set sequential and the other in batch fire, or getting the add-on injector driver and doing both in sequential?
Honestly, are you using them both at the same time, or are you switching 100%? That's the big difference. If you're running pump gas to drive around on because C16 is expensive, and then at the track you switch over to C16, that would be a point where you would want them both sequential. But at wide open throttle, it doesn't make a big enough difference. Once you're beyond a certain RPM, it's going to be spraying while the valve is closed anyways. And at that point, doesn't matter as much. It's just going to be, everything's going to be the same. So batch doesn't hurt you at wide open throttle most of the time if your injectors are sized reasonable. It's only when you really, really oversize them that it becomes a problem. And even then, I doubt you'd really see anything from it. You know, it wouldn't really be anything majorly noticeable.
So back to Matt Sanford, blow-through is a calculation for running wide bands in a pressurized exhaust system, i.e. in the hot side, pre-turbo, instead of having the sensor in the downpipe.
I don't recommend putting O2 sensors pre-turbine on any turbo car.
That sounds like a melted O2 sensor.
If you're doing it right with the standoffs and the pressure compensated deals, they work okay.
You can do them. It's just they die.
You got to maintain them. You can't just you can't leave them in there and let them melt off quick and soon and crusty and put shit through the turbine. But
to answer his question, the Dominator doesn't have that functionality for wideband correction based on pressure compensation.
No,
Back to the scope, what he was asking with the ignition scope or ignition misfire is he's got IGN-1A coils and he sees random 3 millisecond spikes between firing events. I have a picoscope with secondary ignition probe. If you're seeing random spikes,
you're getting bad triggering. You're getting noise triggering. So make sure that your grounds, if they're IGN-1As, there's 3 grounds. Are you using somebody's older plug-and-play harness that's not terminated properly? What you'll have is, and are you getting those spikes on one cylinder or multiple cylinders? My guess is he's got problems triggering, or he's got ground issues where the sensor grounds aren't going to the sensor, ECU sensor return.
Really suggest getting the big wire sensor, the big wire harnesses from Holley for the IGN-1A coils.
John, when you say big wire, are you talking literally gauge?
Yes,
of the wires?
Okay. Yes, they literally make a separate coil harness for the IGN-1A coils that is bigger than they use for the standard LS harnesses.
Yeah, he didn't say actually which ECU he had.
Well, I mean,
and also with those. Go ahead.
The thing of it is no matter whose ECU it is, the coil harnesses for an LS situation like that are kind of.
I gotcha. Yeah, I gotcha.
The coil harness is not in the main harness; it's kind of separate. So, and it's got its own ground for the coils.
It's got 3 grounds for the coils. Yeah. One is a trigger, but 2 grounds and a trigger.
It's got the extra ground that you have to create another ground for instead of the standard harness.
Yep.
So
he actually says he has the big wire harness. So, but you're getting it sounds to me like you have a triggering error somewhere.
And it's important that those things go to the right spot. One of them has to go to the heads. One of them has to go to the battery. It's there to soak up some of that.
And one's going to go to the sensor returns. Yep. Have you watched our Power and Grounds webinar?
Yeah, but with the IGN ones, that is an extra couple of steps because of literally grounding coils by bank.
He's on the secondary side, and he says that the input to the coils looks good. It's a Holley Dominator ECU. So are you just overdwelling them?
It's really hard to overdwell them unless you're up in like the 9s on those. They don't false trigger until you
depends on the system voltage, man. It depends on if you're running a 16 volt system or 12 volt.
If you're 12 volt, if you're a 12 volt 13.8, it's up in the 9s before they start doing that because they start melting and having internal problems.
Right.
I've never had to turn them up that far either. So
it's not like a truck coil.
No,
but those things do require a fair bit of power. So you really need this idea about wire gauge for both the hot side and then the ground side, because all of those grounds matter. So making sure that the capability is there, because you don't want to start heating up wire instead of charging coils. Hey, guys, there's been a thread here, a number of questions about custom, quote, turbo building that's on the Facebook side of this. And I thought it might be worth kind of circling back because there was a question about having somebody on that builds, quote, custom turbos. And John, I know you and a number of the guys here can really speak to this concept. But when people are talking about speccing turbos, there's out-of-the-box stuff. There's said pleasantly, Chinese copies of out of the box stuff from the major builders. And then there's getting turbos that are really properly configured, whether it's billet wheels or just matching both sides. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, somebody, about how this idea of custom turbos works and what's the best way to approach it?
That sounds like a Bewley question to me.
I was going to say, if you want a custom turbo, just call Bewley.
Is he muted?
Bewley.
Yeah, I'm muting my microphone. I'm sitting over here talking like a dummy because I was typing with a muted microphone.
He's trying to hold on. He's got to finish an angry Facebook post first.
Oh, whatever.
I'm kidding.
Hey, Bewley has owned the internet all week. The first thing I see this week is, if I get 1,000 likes, I'll give you the specs on this cam. And like 20 minutes later,
He was eating crow.
God, it was funny.
I thought it was hilarious. That post got like 1,200 likes. That's the most.
Yeah, but it was only in a couple hours.
It was like 4. It was like 4. It had like 500 in an hour and a half. Then it kind of slowed down a little bit. It's. I work with Jose at Forced Inductions. I've been doing this, as a side gig and as a full time gig.
A while.
6 or 7 hours, 6 or 7 years now, since like 2012, and I have yet to have anybody's turbocharger make as much power as Jose's turbos make. And, Jose's a pretty smart dude.
He's winning some classes now too, man. It's starting to show. It's starting to be, clearly there's a difference.
The first 2 turbos in X275 to go 170 mile an hour, Forced Inductions units. Shout out to my boy, Jose.
Dude, I've been trying to get him on the show, but he's always got something with his kids on Wednesday nights.
Listen, that dude.
He wants to get on here to talk to me, but he's always got something going on with family.
You think you got irons in the fire,
right?
That dude has got. He don't know which way is up. He's got so much stuff going on.
Right. No, that's okay, man. He's doing a good job.
He's a good
Lots
dude.
of happy mutual customers. I haven't met him yet, but I will someday.
He's a really good dude. He does a good job. He's got things available to him that no other company out there has. For example, the 100 millimeter turbine for the S400 chassis. Nobody else has got that. That is a Forced Inductions piece. It is not a Borg piece. It is a Forced Inductions piece.
Right.
So there's some things that he can do and provide people that nobody else can do. A lot of the other guys are kind of stuck with a 96 millimeter, working with a 96 millimeter turbine, and thanks to him and what he's been accomplished, he's not painted me in that box, and I've got way more options to provide our customers and set them up with. But Jose's my favorite. Reed at work does some really good work too. Those two guys, anybody needs a turbocharger, in my opinion, those two guys are the go-to for the S400 base stuff.
There's a short conversation here about golf ball porting. Answer no. Stop.
Bill probably hasn't seen the head game.
You've got to see the video to understand why that was brought up.
Why that's even extra funny today.
All they have to do is say, "Hey."
What?
It's science.
It's science.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, Dave proved that the dimpled port, worked better. So what can you say?
Well, Spire's been a proponent of that for as long as I've known him. But we've even had talks with pro stock builders about where texture in the port in certain places can be used to control airflow or reintroduce fuel back into the airstream because of boundary layers. So it's just, the argument isn't whether or not dimpling ports or texture in the ports works. It's a matter of what's the proper texture and where is where the discussion goes.
Well, I'm going to stop you there because this whole conversation revolved around Dave's video.
Yeah, they got to make him watch his video first.
I haven't seen the video.
I ain't loading the video
Mark's
for
gonna
nothing
go all
anymore
into a
tonight.
tirade about golf ball dimples and ports. And
you just need to go. You need to go to YouTube and do a search for Head Games Motorworks dimple port.
All right,
and you need to do that fairly soon. That way, I can proceed with we can continue here because I don't want to aggravate you too much until you actually get to see the video.
Okay, we'll shelve this for later.
Okay, it's on my Facebook page too. It's one of my posts I made this week. There's a post talking about having to eat crow because the dimple port worked better than the standard port.
I caught something like that, but it's everything I can do just to answer Facebook Messenger and questions from people and still try and do my regular work other than sit and watch videos and stuff. So I usually ignore them. So I apologize for that.
Oh, it's ain't no thing.
I can't keep up with all the ones coming at me either. I'm trying. Here's a quick one you can knock out quick. V-bind turbine housings on a single turbo app. Pros and cons.
Pros: lighter, smaller, easier to package. I'm going to refrain from speaking anything about power production with the V-band housings because I have not personally tested it. If it makes more, makes less.
Does your gut say one may go one way or the other?
Man, my gut says that it might not flow as much air as the bigger T6 stuff because, when you look at the housings, they look like they're T4 based. But when you measure the cross-sectional area of the throat and you do the math on it, they're really not that much smaller than the big, like on the S400. Let's take, for example, the teal housing on the S400 versus the T6 132. When you measure the cross-sectional area of both of the scrolls on the Borg housing and you add those together and compare it to the teal is not that far behind. The design of the volute and the discharge slot is a lot better. And in my opinion, it is more oriented to performance applications. And from a twin aspect, they work better. I've swapped a couple of cars over to teals from like T4 125s, T4 110s. And do they spool a little bit quicker? Yeah, they spool a little bit quicker in the twin application. As a big single, I'm not gonna step on my own toes and say something that I have no data to back up.
Safe to assume you could just take the bigger one and weld your own V-band on it if you really wanted a V-band housing.
You could, but then you don't necessarily get the same benefits that like the teal housing provides because the teal housing is a lot more compact. The volute on it, it's 10 pounds lighter. And let's just say with a Borg, 10 pounds is a lot because that turbocharger is 60 pounds to start with. So if you got two of those on a car, you got 100 pounds worth of turbocharger on a car and you can turn 100 pounds into 80 pounds there. When you get to the point where you start chasing 10 pounds at a time, they're definitely something you need to be looking at because that provides 20 pounds you can put in movable ballast.
Speak a bit about where the T6 housings are divided. So in a single application, I would personally think that the divided housing would work better because you could do, a twin scroll type setup where it should theoretically make it spool faster than one big open throat on the inlet. with the sizes of the volutes and everything, I don't necessarily know that it's going to be detrimental to be single because when you look at the way a dedicated single scroll is designed in comparison to say a dual scroll like the Borg, they're really not that far behind. Like let's take for example a 100 millimeter 400 and compare that to a GT50 Garrett. Now the Garrett isn't really, it's ahead of the Borg mainly because it's ball bearing, but it's not, I don't necessarily know that a properly designed single scroll is all that much far behind a dual scroll. The only thing you have to take into consideration is if you do have a dual scroll, you need to utilize it because it will work better if you utilize it versus just merging it together and using a single entry. If you have it, you have to take advantage of it. You have to use it in order for it to be right. But if you don't have it, I don't necessarily know that it's detrimental not to use it if it's designed properly.
What else? We catching up?
Daniel Lambo, boost controller question. Where should you pull the pressure for the wastegate in the controller? From the turbo housing or from the intake manifold?
if you're using manifold pressure to supply your solenoids for your controller, you need to pull it from the compressor housing, because that controller needs as much source pressure as possible. And I literally try to talk everybody that I can, especially my customers, into not setting it up that way, because the ability to do onboard air now is more cheaper and more readily available than it's ever been, because you've got the Vi-Air 10,000 is the part number on it. It's $129 on Amazon. It's a half a gallon tank, a small compressor that's 105 psi off, 85 psi on, and you take that, buy a little air dryer for it so it doesn't ruin your solenoids with moisture, and then just slap an adjustable regulator on it so you can regulate it down to about 80 psi to feed the solenoids, and just wear that controller out with some onboard air.
See, I got to touch with, I'm catching flack from CJ Gieb here because I started to make a comment about head games. And when you said that, I'm not familiar with him. It's not somebody that I use for cylinder heads. And in my head, I was picturing Head Bites, if you all remember who that was.
Yeah, no.
And so that's where my comments were starting to come from. And so I apologize for that. Just to reiterate that I was thinking of Head Bites. And if you guys want to have, I'll just
leave it at that and let him
leave it at that. Yeah.
But Dave LaCalio is the guy that owns Head Games and Motorworks, and he's a sharp dude. He's real.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like him and his work. They're happy with his work, so that's good.
He's real big into the import stuff. I think he does a lot of Subaru.
He does work for Delgado and those guys, right? Doesn't he work on the White Rice head?
Yeah, he does White Rice's head. He does a lot of 2J stuff.
Enough said.
Hey, White Rice, he did pretty good over at Ducks until what happened? He broke something, didn't he?
They let Delgado tune it. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Oh, shit. That's going to get me. A couple hours from now. That's going to
get you a text message. That's going to get you a
Chris, go listen at 1 hour and 8 minutes, 31 seconds.
No,
I love you, Chris. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I was just a few minutes ago when I was talking about the X275 cars going 170. White Rice was the second one to do that.
Right, which is nuts. Is that thing? Is it 3 liters?
Is
it at 3 liters? We got to get the details again on what combo. He's always
isn't it like a 3.4 stroker?
Yeah, that's what I did.
I thought it was like a 3.4. I don't even know.
Wow.
I don't even know what the stroker size is for a 2J. I'm
like a
5 inches, cubic inches.
I have no idea.
Motor.
Yeah, I got no clue.
Running 170 in the eighth.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got a question on the Facebook side. I got a call up here. Bradley Campbell asks, SBE LS1 nitrous combo, 36 or 42 pound injectors. You guys might be seeing this. 36s are brand new. 42s have unknown runtime, wet Switzer Dynamics plate. Plan on leaning on it as hard as it will take. Any advantage to one over the other? I have kind of a smart ass answer, but I don't want to do that. So anybody else want to do it first?
Send those 42s. I'd say send those 42s off to be cleaned and flowed and checked. If they flow
make sure
good,
they're
then
good
pop
and
them
healthy.
in.
Have somebody test them for $75 or whatever it is. Not even that much.
Most people will charge you like $22 an injector.
Is he stock ECU? He didn't say standalone, so he's probably talking stock ECU.
I take back my comment.
Did you watch the video?
All these stock ECUs always get me.
Oh.
Because I think in standalone. I don't think in stock ECU.
Yeah, so it doesn't say one way or another, but it just sounds like staying on the 36s might be a recipe for, if you want to blow shit up, be my guest.
36s are probably going to be on the light side of where you need to be. 42s are kind of a proven, like, naturally aspirated injector size for LS motors that seems to cover most of the field, unless you've got a really true, like, max effort, really hardcore, all-out race car. Sometimes it's kind of pushing it a little bit and you need a little more, but most of the things I've tuned, if they've had 42s, it's been enough injector for naturally aspirated. And since you're a wet kit, you can treat it like it's naturally aspirated.
I missed the question. What was the question again?
36s or 42s for a nitrous LS1 with a wet kit.
Oh yeah, well the nitrous is void because it's a wet kit.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Hey James, tell Angel I said hi.
Yeah, right. Is that Angel and the kids in the background and the girls?
Yeah, those are girls. I've got to go to bed.
How many girls live in your house, James?
How many what?
How many girls live in your house, James?
3 other females.
You including the cats too, or?
Oh Jesus!
You might as well.
There is a severe lack of testosterone in the short.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's literally 2 of the cats are boys, and my dog's a boy. So
that'll help.
There's 3 boys for animals, but all the humans are girls. But me.
If you had the animals fixed, then they don't exactly count for the testosterone.
They're only 50% there. So 3 get you 1.5, and he's still outnumbered.
Yeah, so we're 2.5 here.
Oh man, he says that car is on an MS3 Pro.
Which car?
The nitrous car, the LS1 car. Just put the 42s in it.
Well, give you a good example. You remember Thule's old 454 LS deal. That thing had 42 green tops in it. Now, granted, LS pressure is 58 PSI, whereas those are rated 42 at, roughly 43 PSI or 39. I can't remember what they rated those at. But anyway, those injectors end up flowing, I think, 52 and some change at LS pressure. And, that thing made 705 at the crank and 600 to the wheels. So
you're going to give him that 1 horsepower?
Was it just $599?
I thought it was. I remember him being.
Maybe it was. I think you're right.
Actually, $599. It was because he was so bad that it wouldn't show 6. He couldn't get it to show 600.
Oh God, we tried everything on that car too. We even, it was on a 248 dyno jet, so it was up in the air anyway. We got underneath the thing and yanked the X pipe off of it and ran it open header, and then it was a $599 pull.
You guys ever run into any situations where Alpha N has its place?
Individual throttle body motorcycles, snowmobiles, that kind of stuff that are drag racing on methanol, maybe. But otherwise, I'll either do some kind of blended mode, or I like to run individual tubes to a reservoir and then use that for your map sensor and idle valve.
Large cams that don't make any vacuum at all on a nitrous combo. That's usually about the only place I like to use Alpha N.
Pro stock car, we use it on the Pro stock motors.
I always like to do a blended state where you use speed density up to obviously 0 vacuum, and then verse RPM, from that percentage of throttle on, use Alpha N to modify the VE.
Yeah, but if it doesn't make any vacuum at all, then there's no point in using a VE table.
It's always going to make a little bit of vacuum once you pick it up off idle. But
that's it. It might not make vacuum at idle, but at 5,000 RPM, it's going to make some kind of vacuum with the blades closed.
Yeah. But I hear you. Let's see here. Hey, my book is getting about ready. It's going through some editing processes here, but
I know that I've witnessed Clark having NHRA Pro Stock stuff starting like daily drivers. So
close. We try. Those things are some sons of bitches to tune those 500-inch motors. They're interesting.
But I mean, if you're talking about
to meet my own standards, it's very difficult. I can't stand something that doesn't just light right off perfectly every time. And I mean, the big challenge for most of the tuners in NHRA Pro Stock with the 500-inchers was to get them to stay running after a burnout, to get it to drop back down to idle and not surge a bunch and stall. That was everybody's big challenge. I took pride in that. The couple I was tuning never stalled, not during the big show. We had a couple early on during testing, but I got that fixed right away. It's like, we cannot have that shit. And then
pro stock
things, if you have to pedal them, they'll over rev super fast. I mean, you can't, the throttle is so huge that you barely crack the throttle when you go to start them and they want to rev the tune. Yeah.
The throttle, the freaking throttle body on that car is stupid big.
It's like 8 times too big. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like 4.5 cubic feet of throttle blade. It's horrible.
Right, pretty much.
And it's
square feet. Cubic feet, square feet.
It's what? It's like it's an oval throttle body that's like 160 by 80.
Yeah, I mean, it's stupid. We made a throttle linkage so we could work by hand on it that literally would crack it like a couple millimeters would make it to where the motor, you couldn't just bring the RPM up on the motor slowly when in neutral. You literally just had to, if you moved the throttle, it was on the limiter. I mean, it's just so weird when you're trying to warm these things up in the shop and get them running the first time to make them happy.
Yep, idle them high as shit just so you can get them warm.
Yeah.
Loaded question for you, Scott, because I know there's different ways of doing this, and you're the guy that's on top of this one. Have you ever seen over 100% VE on an NA engine?
Well, technically you can't. It depends on the model. So it depends on the ECU that you're using. I mean, technically so volumetric efficiency, you can't actually change the volume. So in the proper sense, the ECUs that have the right correct models out there, the OEM grade speed density stuff, that you won't technically get over 100%, or you can't change the volume. I mean, you're cramming more mass and atmospheric pressure in there, and you can build it to slightly higher than atmospheric pressure with wave type tuning. I mean, Dahlquist, that's kind of hallmark of you naturally aspirated guys that do Engine Masters Challenge. You try to get the exhaust and the intake right, so that, and the cam, the valve events right, so that you get the right RPM. You capture a little, because of ram tuning, you'll end up with a little bit higher than atmospheric pressure air in the combustion chamber for the valve closes. That's kind of the whole idea. So in one way, yes, and in one way, no. If you're an ECU modeling guy, an engineer, software, firmware developer, whatever, or into really good models, you'll say, no, you can't get over 100% volume, because unless you do something to change the volume of the chamber, but you can't get more than that mass or volume at atmospheric pressure.
Well, technically though, if you got ram tuning and you could use that to your advantage, you can fit more volume of air in the cylinder, because that's the only way pressure.
More mass. No, you're cramming more mass.
Right. Well, yeah.
Technically,
so it raises the pressure, but it's in the same volume.
Here's the problem. Okay, here's the problem.
You guys are mixing your terms.
Yeah, here's the problem. That model, that volume model, is based on a constant, right? It's based on a constant of mass versus volume. So when you get the wave tuning right and you do that, you end up getting technically more air in the cylinder than what the cylinder is supposed to be able to hold and fill itself. Yeah. In my opinion, technically, yes, a naturally aspirated motor could be above 100 VE.
Oh, I'll tell you, we've seen them that showed that if you calculate it that way, we've seen them to 115 and 117 that I believed.
I'm going to be the party pooper here. Okay.
Yeah.
By the physical math, by physics alone, it is not physically possible. What you're not seeing is more than 100% VE. What you are seeing is bad math that fakes like it's more, because there's pressure, and pressure does not necessarily mean there's more VE.
Do the equation to model EFI by letting it be greater than 100%.
Correct. The volume itself goes up when you add the boost. So by cramming more stuff in there, it's more volume compressed in there.
Volume
so technically,
volume doesn't go up when you add boost.
Right. The volume doesn't go up. The airflow, the mass goes up.
I can fit 80 cubic feet of air into a bottle for scuba diving, and
but now it takes up the volume of that bottle.
Atmospheric pressure. That's at atmospheric. It's 80 cubic feet at atmospheric.
But that's correct. But that's more volume crammed in a small space. Yes.
Ideal gas law.
Hey guys, we're having a very non-scientific conversation here, because.
But that's what I'm pointing. The scientific side says. The scientific side says it can't be more than 100%. Something else changes if it's more than 100%.
Yes, something else changes.
The pressure.
In an NA application, that's
the density,
pulse resonance, and it's that wave tuning that allows you to do it on the intake side to get more than 100% VE and an induction. And I think,
but you're technically not more than 100% volume, Bill. Is the point? You're filling a certain amount of cubic inches.
No, but don't confuse your terms here, because the swept volume stays the same, but the mass of air that is occupying that volume is greater than what would be available. So again,
not the volume, the mass,
we're mixing our terms. We're mixing our terms.
That's right.
So that's the thing.
Don't get hung up on the volumetric efficiency.
Sure.
The way we discuss volumetric efficiency ultimately comes down to the mass of air, not
Right.
So I think what Bewley's getting at is, and Scott both, we're all actually saying the same thing. It's just a different way of looking at it. But technically, you're not changing the displacement of the engine, but you are cramming more than atmospheric. If you're looking at the air in atmospheric pressure terms, you are cramming more volume in there. But you're compressing it to fit into a smaller volume because your density and the pressure went up.
Right. You're raising the density above the constant used to do the math.
We should just let Bewley do it because he wrote a post on this the other day that was
and he's
actually correct. Actually, Tom Vigua just joined. This should be interesting now.
He's like, you dummies, I had to sign in because you're a bunch of idiots.
The volumetric efficiency, 100% volumetric efficiency is you're getting 100% of the volume of the sweat volume of the engine based on the constant of there's X amount of mass in X volume. Well, if you increase the density and you have to put more fuel in, technically you've got more air at the constant used to do the math in the cylinder than the sweat volume of the cylinder. Yes, there can be higher than 100% volumetric efficiency on a naturally aspirated
in that regard.
Think of it this way in simple terms.
If you're always observing the constant, you can't observe the constant to do the math one way for one side of it and then ignore the constant on the other. So if you're going to
use that was the point I was getting at.
You have to use the constant on the other.
I think that's the point I was getting at. The biggest misconception is here that people think of volumetric efficiency as the efficiency of the actual engine, when technically it's just describing the volume of air versus the volume of the engine that is being ingested. So
what's the constant is atmospheric pressure. But in reality, in the combustion chamber, if you get more than that 100 cubic, say it's a 100 cubic inch cylinder, but you've got 110 cubic inches of air crammed into there.
No, you're right.
It's an atmospheric pressure. Well, now you've still got 100 cubic inches of air, but at a higher pressure.
The constant is that vacuum or boost that you have is built in as part of it's a moving constant, because at a vacuum that you're at, say 50 kPa, you're not going to have 100% VE there because it's less efficient, right?
In other words, it's how you look at it. It always starts a good argument. And I'll tell you what, you get a room full of guys like Chris Delgado, who, he's into like the Pro EFI model and the Motec fuel models. And the better ones, when you get an in boost, they stay at 100% VE. Their numbers don't get above 100% VE. They have boost compensation. They compensate for the density of the air charge, right? That's how they look at it. It's a little bit harder model to do, but ends up being more accurate.
You're having that's fuel.
Well, see, that's how the OEM, like the GM stuff, that's how it does it. And
right. It's the right way to do it.
Super awesome. Right.
Yeah, it's the right way to do it.
If you see more than 100% on OEM, it usually means you have something in your data that is not correct in the first place that's allowing it to calculate more than 100%, or the model itself isn't 100% correct.
So just to clarify this a little bit, so the resonance tuning is one of the ways that you get more air than the engine would otherwise pull into the swept volume. The other one is front facing or some sort of, or cowl induction for that matter, where you are creating pressure greater than atmospheric at the entry point. So a properly set up forward facing or cowl scoop. And if you look at it, you can see it in the KPA and the map sensor. You have more air coming in than you would have had if it was just drawing from the open atmosphere. You can
There's a third way you're forgetting about too.
Probably.
Creating a negative pressure in the cylinder with proper exhaust evacuation.
Which is the resonance tuning part of it. I mean, I apologize for not mentioning both ends, but that's the idea of scavenging, which also happens at particular RPM. And if everything is just right, then that's why we use a phrase like volumetric efficiency in an NA application in excess of 100%. And all we're really doing is
cheaper ECUs that look at it as like 115%. Yeah. And I've seen 115, 117.
That resonance tuning is still just creating a small amount of pressure, right? That's allowing it to force in to draw in more. And it's like a vacuum pump that pulls a little bit as it pushes, right? You always get that little gulp going on as an air compressor does. It's pulling a little extra and it's creating a small amount of pressure in there and then putting it out the other side. So it's still the same of you really can only have 100% of whatever it can pull in based on the constants. It's just that constant is fixed in the ECU, and so it shows up as more than 100% because of that.
Did somebody say that Tom's here?
Yeah. The mustache is
he
here.
logged into
Well, he's
Facebook.
Facebook.
Oh, okay. I'm just,
We should be wrapping it up
We can
soon.
all dance around this, but the bottom line is in order to make the engine operate effectively, you're having to add more fuel than a flat 100% volumetric efficiency would dictate. And
Correct.
that just means you have more oxygen to burn in there. However you want to describe how it arrived, you're still having to provide more fuel in order to, create the correct combustion. So doesn't make any difference. The point is you're getting the same thing, and it's been expressed in different ways over time, and different systems calculate for it differently, but we're still getting to the idea that you have more air in the cylinder than the simple swept volume would have dictated that was there, right?
Provided you're talking atmospheric pressure as a constant, like Beely said.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You always, I mean, like I said, if you're going to do constant on one side, you got to do constant on the other.
I will say it's a very good tool to watch if you have a really stable fuel pressure and climate conditions. Obviously, if you make a change to your combination and you have to add 3% to a certain area or take away percentage from a certain area, it almost directly represents power increase or decrease based on that.
Exactly. I think, Scott, going back to an experience we've had in common, watching the reversion cloud of wet air over and above the tunnel ram when we were at Vervancic is a perfect example of that.
Yep.
It would appear at certain RPM and load, and another certain RPM.
And it would suck back in, then it would spit back out, and then it would suck back in again. It was pretty cool. We had that on the early Hemi for Engine Masters too.
Yeah.
Every YouTube video on the internet of
individual throttle body with a shower form injection. Yeah.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Have you ever data logged pressure above the intake inlet or at the intake inlet?
I have with the TFX setup that we use. I've looked at inlet or intake port pressure like an inch upstream of the intake valve.
You didn't let me
also
finish.
looked at exhaust pressure about an inch downstream.
You didn't let me finish. The guys are asking how much pressure they're getting from a hood scoop at 60 miles an hour to 160. And I figured that.
So we've looked at that on Doc McIntyre's car and a couple of cars actually. Yeah.
Maybe at Bonneville you've looked at a couple. Bonneville too?
No, I did on the Bonneville cars because the fast ones are all turbocharged. Did we look at that? We did look at that on Cecilio's car with the big scoop picked up it looked like it was bouncing around a half of a PSI, not much. The Pro Stock car in dry air does better. The Pro Stock car in wet air, it doesn't show hardly any positive pressure, but it shows a huge temperature drop. But it shows, at the top of how fast are the Pro Stock cars going, Mark?
215, 213,
220, 215, whatever. So it's showing 1.5, I think, is a good day on those guys on their scoops right now. The down low ones, I don't have familiarity with the scoops that when they were big up in the air for the carburetors. And I was moving map sensors around on the river car, even though we weren't using it, just using it for logging. But no, that's about it. Just a little bit. McIntyre's car was the same deal. I think at the end of a quarter mile pass, I think he's seeing like 1.5 or 1.25 PSI.
Yeah.
But big temperature drop.
Yeah, much more significant on the temp drop. That's what I've seen just on my slow ass car. I mean, the temperature gain over the length of a run at just 150 miles an hour is a big difference if you're just trying to pull air from underneath the hood, from the radiator and all that heat getting in there versus something clean coming from a cowl, or even better from a separated laminar intake on the hood front facing.
Vigio says that Pro Stock will start to go positive about the top of third gear.
There you go.
Yeah, low 120s. I've done it with the turbochargers, but I've never done it on an NA car. I remember reading Mickey Thompson's book on Challenger 1, and he said Challenger 1 would make 5 pounds of positive manifold pressure above the carburetors with the scoops that were on that car. But that car is running north of 300 miles an hour.
Who's watching television? Or whatever the hell that is.
Right?
I'm going to have to go here pretty soon, dudes.
Is that
right.
Hey guys,
that time.
hey guys,
It's
I know you guys are
Chad.
getting ready to go.
Chad!
Dude, I'm actually in a Suburban in Southern California with Lyle and Biggin and Pete Harrell, aka the good-looking 4 of 6 on the wonderful world of
Garbage Wars.
Beer money.
Are you?
Yes. So
are you on your way for round 2?
No, we're doing that it's in a couple months, but me and Biggin are sitting here listening to the podcast, and we decided we wanted to call in, let everybody out there know that they're going to announce 2 more finalists tomorrow and 2 more Friday. So the 10 finalists for the competition will be all announced by the end of the day on Friday. So then you'll be able to vote and all that stuff. So we're looking forward to finding out who is going to be our competition this year, because we are defending the title. So we're coming back. The competition is May 7th through the 18th or something like that. And so we're going to be.
Where do they go to vote on all this, Chad?
It's going to be at horsepowerwars.com. So you can go to horsepowerwars.com and then click on the 10K drag challenge. So you'll be able to see everything there.
And you want us to vote for all the lame ass people so you won't have any competition? Is that what you're saying?
No, there's good teams. I got to tell you, like, there's some cool people this year that we know and some we don't know, but I'm really looking forward to some more good competition. We had good competition last year. I mean, we kicked everyone's ass. There's no doubt, but we had fun doing it. We're ready to do more.
I just want to.
We already are scheming, so you know.
Hey, Chad. Mike Perduto says that if Lyle gets outrun by the Diesel crew, we're all going to lose faith.
Yeah, well, dude. Okay, so the Diesel crew's talking smack, Lyle. They're already saying, you know, if they beat you, then they're going to just never let you hear the end of it. Well, we actually were talking about those guys last night while we were sitting in a dive bar called the Juke Joint in Anaheim, drinking beer and playing pool. Because they said they could make, you know, a jillion horsepower Cummins for, you know, on a budget and all that. But, you know, there's a lot more to it. You got to build the whole car. It's not just a motor. So, but look for our team to be doing something different. We don't plan on doing the same thing as last time.
Oh, you're going to do a mod motor. Awesome. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, mod motor. Yes, mod motor on nitrous.
Yeah,
actually,
perfect.
no, roots blown. Pete's saying roots blown. We're going to do a roots blown mod motor is what we're going to do.
Yeah, what I really want to see, I want to see the Pinky guys
Disco
back.
D a little too much.
Is there enough leftover timing chain to run the blower with it?
Dude, that's true. A mod motor does have enough chain to make it run the blower. That would be awesome.
More chains than brains.
More chains and brains.
Here's the sad part is I wouldn't put it past Pete Harrell to actually do that. He would be the kind of person.
That's awesome.
He's the kind of person who would try to pull that off just because he can. Because he's got some customers with turbo mod motors that are fast as all get out. So the whole mod motor thing, y'all saying it like a joke, but I don't really believe it's that big of a joke because I can see him do it.
How fast? I worked with Curtis Forsberg. His car's moving out. He just went and busted off 780s, just goofing around in his with his new combo that he did here a couple weeks ago.
Well, he's got I can't remember. He had a customer named Mark that had a mod motor like Ultra Street car that was running like 5.0s back when, or like high 4s. I can't remember. It's 2 or 3 years ago. He was, he won a couple of races and he was a front runner when the class was running that ET. I don't know. I haven't necessarily think I've seen the car out in the last couple of years, but Pete's crazy enough. He would do something like that. I fully believe that with 110%. He would do something like that.
I've got him on speakerphone so he can hear you now.
Cool. So we got 3 geniuses and Chad in a Suburban, and we want to know what you guys think.
That sounds right.
Yeah, this VE question about what is or is not 100% VE, and what do you get from trying to make something work better on an NA motor? Anybody got an opinion in the Suburban?
Is higher than 100% VE possible? Or is it just a calculation?
For the first time ever, I'm going to wish we had Greg Banish on here to defend my argument on this. But
Why? What's your argument, Scott?
My argument is you can't technically have more than 100% volume efficiency, volumetric, even though we all know that a lot of ECUs will show you higher than 100% VE because there's in their simplified method, they're assuming that air is still at atmospheric pressure, but it's not. You're using Helmholtz tuning and wave tuning to have that intake valve open up and that cylinder takes a gulp of higher pressure air. So you fit a little bit more, you may call it 100, maybe 15% or 10% more air than that swept volume at atmospheric pressure. So if you talk to one ECU modeled software developer, they'll tell you, no, you can't go over 100%, and their VEs never go over the number 100 in their systems, or others, simpler systems out there will say, sure, you can get 110, 112, 115% if you're working with an airflow guy that knows what the hell he's doing. So that's the ways of arguing about it. I'm neutral on either one.
Scavenging on the exhaust and positive pressure, picking up air at the cowl or a front facing scoop or something like that. So,
all right, Pete has words.
That's why I tune in pounds per hour, so I don't have to worry about that kind of thing.
Pounds per hour.
Problem solved.
Best answer of the evening.
Yeah, there we go.
We need to have
actually, we had a listener that asked, how come you tune in VE rather than PPH?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, because I got to tune more than one system in my life. Once you start tuning more than one box, you learn really quick that VE is the way to go. Here's the other reason for that. You can have the engine displacement doesn't matter at all. Almost every engine has very, very similar volumetric efficiency curves, but you can take two very similar displacement LS engines, and cam changes will make them have wildly different pounds per hour. So if you're in the business of just having to provide tunes all the time, way easier, even on the Holly, to start off with VE. I can give you a VE map right now that'll run every engine out there on every fuel.
Yep.
Like literally it'll start running. You may have to adjust it 10 or 15% in spots at the most. I do that in my classes. I show people, I'm like, here, just use this VE table. Don't try to spend a day calculating it. And you don't got to fill your way around like you do with pounds per hour, which is fine. I don't care. Either one can be made to work. But it's just, for me, it's easier to get work done doing it in volumetric efficiency mode. I don't know, James, what's your thought on that? Same deal. You tune a lot of different stuff.
Same thing.
Yeah,
same thing. I don't mute my microphone.
Over to
same thing.
Quick or a big stuff.
Well, yeah, that and see where I do the OEM ECU stuff too. It's the same thing.
Even in speed density mode, yeah.
I've got certain camshafts, for instance, that I assign a VE table to, and whenever I first start a new tune on a car, whether it's an LS2, which is a 6-liter, or a 6.2, or even a 427, you just literally.
This two funny stories. The same VE table that we did in my class for this Holly for just basic LS engines, Blake Hughes put one on that big block Chevy of Russ Freeman's car on methanol, right? He's like, okay, I just tell this thing it's methanol and just put these numbers in it and fire it up, huh? They started it up. They didn't change the VE table whatsoever. I mean, it was on methanol, so it's obviously got like a pretty huge range of, you turn methanol, you tune it till it's spitting liquid fuel out the exhaust, then back it off a quarter turn kind of thing. So arguably there's a nice broad, I guess, tuning window you'd call it there. But he put the same VE from class in Russ Freeman's car, and Anastasia was tuning it. She didn't touch it the whole event at the Kansas City, the Topeka No Prep Nationals. They had that big event here last fall.
It's one thing you can copy and paste in a tune.
Yeah. So that's why I do.
Let's
VE.
go to that.
Unlike the timing tables.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I'm never going to hear the end of that.
Fucking dude, we got people giving classes without timing lights. So who the hell needs a timing table to be right?
Let's take the VE table, Scott, and we'll go to the absolute opposite end of the spectrum, and we'll plug that model right into the flathead and see how it goes.
We will. We'll see what happens. It'll be
that'll be about as far the other direction as we could possibly go.
No, the Rivers Elite Pro Stock 500-inch motor, the bigger one, or the better one that he has of the two. Yeah, I put the VE table on that just for the hell of it, even though the map signal is dog shit, and it ran fine. It started right up on that. So, although I do that in Alpha N and pounds per hour now for other reasons, but
the other thing is in Alpha N or in pounds per hour mode, you may have what looks to be a smooth graph of fueling, but it's usually very deceiving and not even remotely close to what it needs to be. When you start looking at it in VE, you have a better understanding that is not that smooth. It looks like it transitions smooth. It doesn't translate correctly most of the time.
Yeah. I just have better luck on VE. It's personal preference. That's why.
I love some of the quotes coming through here. There's one that says, Pete is the John Causey of horsepower wars. I know there's a compliment in there somewhere. And then Tom, thank you. Most engines don't operate or have the induction needed to create RAM effect, cream of the crop, NA stuff. Thank you. No, I'm kidding. Guys, are we? Do we want to take any more questions, or are we ready to wrap up the evening? We're at the hour and 41-minute mark.
We've caused enough dissension in the ranks this evening. I think.
Oh yeah, everybody wants to kick each other's ass.
I think it's about time to call it.
I knew as soon as I saw the VE question, I knew that was going to be a hot topic.
Good luck, Chad and crew, on the next installment of the, what is it, the 10K
Horsepower Wars $10,000 drag race challenge. Yes. Be there someday. National
Could they come up with a longer name for it?
Do what?
Could they come up with a longer name for it?
I'm sure they could.
I don't think so. I don't think that there could be a longer name. Unless you add the 2019 to the beginning of it.
Right? We still fucked it up. That's funny.
Yeah.
As returning champions, do you get any like special advantages, like the ability to pick your own T-shirts or something?
You know what? I don't think so. I think we're actually going to be penalized. I believe, based on some of the conversations I've had with James, that there will probably be a few little things that, because we're the defending champs, we have to do different, or we get we have a handicap on, some of the little competitions that give us,
you aren't going to try and kill Lyle again, are you?
No, I am not going to kill Lyle again, but that's going to depend on on Lyle also trying not to kill himself. So the night before, I think we're going to stop at single-digit pitchers of beer. That would be my suggestion. Because when anybody asks how much beer did Lyle drink the night before, the answer is all of it. Everything all the other teams left behind, Team Beer Money made sure that all got drank up.
Well, you can't waste any.
James wasting his money. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
hey, I have
to kill Lyle this time.
Before we go, I have a question about Beer Money.
Yeah, what's the question about Beer Money?
The intake tube in the beer cans. Did you guys TIG actual beer cans on there, or is that a wrap?
No, it is actual beer cans. They are red siliconed onto the tube. Lyle cut the beer cans apart and then, used the high temp RTV to put them on the tube.
That is awesome. I love it.
We were kind of hoping, though, that Biggin had actually welded the beer cans together to make the tube, because
that's exactly what we did.
Yes, and that's what we did. Yes. I mean, that's the answer. Those aluminum cans are good for, because we're only running 6 pounds of boost in it. So, the beer cans are fine.
Well, I figured that maybe they TIG welded the cans to the aluminum tube, but you cheated with RTV.
Lyle is losing his mind driving around in Southern California right now because we just turned onto a street that the GPS sent us down, and the street is blocked. Oh yeah.
That's like a 1 in 7 thing there. What are you talking about?
I know.
All right,
right?
well, you guys have a good night.
Yep.
All right. You guys too. Thank you. Everybody have fun.
Thanks for calling in, guys.
Good luck.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Scotty, you want to take us out for the night?
Yeah.
Damn, we did an hour and 45 minutes tonight.
Hour and 45 tonight. Well played, gentlemen. Well played.
Yes.
All right. Sorry about my audio screw-ups. I messed a few things up. Next time we will edit videos before we ask me to put them on the air so that they're ready, because there was some unprepared audio in that. That was the problem. So my fault for not knowing how to grab it quickly. We'll figure that out next time. And thank you guys all for listening again. Everybody have a good night, and we'll see you next. Learn how to tune electronic fuel injection live in person with the guys from RealTuners? We have 2-day courses in dyno shops all across the country. You can register for these at RealTuners.com and click on RealTuners Live Classes. For more information or to make a reservation, go to RealTuners.com or message us on Facebook at RealTuners LLC. Now, about those classes. When are they, you might ask? On March 2nd, a special 1-day advanced course at Dynocom Industries in Fort Worth, Texas. March 30th and 31st, late model Dodge and Mopar factory ECU tuning with Rick Tapp in Dallas, Fort Worth. April 13th and 14th, a Level 1 EFI course at Endless Performance in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. April 27th and 28th, an advanced class at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri. May 18th and 19th, a standalone EFI Level 1 class at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri. June 15th and 16th, a Level 2 advanced course in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at Endless Performance. And of course, we will be trying to schedule more classes and more dates throughout the year, so keep checking back for more info.